Hey, everybody.
Great
Welcome,
to see
everyone.
everybody.
We're gonna get started just as soon as we've got most people on. We have a lot of people for this call, which is great, but I want to give them all a chance to get on and for Jasmine to let them in.
And I'm seeing some familiar names and faces. For those of you who know Mark and I, hello. And for those of you who we haven't had the privilege of working with yet, hello to you as well.
And Deb Zeisman, what time is it in Hawaii?
It is 7:30. I have my coffee and a bagel out here, Mark.
There you go. Has your son connected, Deb, with other important people, or do you need more ideas?
No, I think he's good for now, Deb. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a very cute question.
It was an odd, 10-year-olds are weird.
But they're wonderful. They're just lovely.
Liam, how do I get your AirPods to go on my device?
And then, of course, we all have our in-house technical assistants. Often much
Exactly.
than us.
Sorry about that.
Tech support.
Oh, it's great. My son is very, very excited that he gets to give me TA about Reddit, because I'm probably going to do some AMAs for the census on Reddit. And
Very cool.
he never posts there, but he follows it a lot. He's giving me all kinds of advice about it.
So folks who are joining us, we're going to get started in a couple of minutes to give folks enough time to get on. A tech flag is that we are going to be doing some breakout groups. I promise folks on the phone will not get left behind, but it probably will, if you have video capacity on whatever device you're using, it's great to be on video because then we can do breakout groups a little more strategically, and our phone group won't be as large. Mark, anything you would add to that? Mark is my resident tech support, so.
Perfectly put. And I'm going to be muting because for some reason the dog is whining. So apologies if I forget to unmute once or twice.
No worries.
We still have people entering from the waiting room, which is why we're holding on here for a bit.
Okay. Yeah, it has to be.
I have 1:33. I'm wondering if we should get started.
I'm just waiting for Julia Pagan to finish joining.
I think she may have gotten in. She tried 3 times. Julia, are you with us?
I am. I'm here. Hi, Mark.
Oh, okay. For some reason, you also show up there. So by all means, let us get started. Welcome, everyone. I think we've all had a hard week, right? And it's in some ways really difficult to turn our attention to this. The partnership will be putting out a statement later. I'm sure you're all doing a lot of work later about the protests and all of the many implications of them. And it's kind of hard to turn our mind to fundraising right now. But I want to remind you that what you guys do is really important. It is a small piece because we need a really big solution. But it is a piece of the solution to some of the problems we're facing. And so this is a good place for us to be spending our time in right now. Why is it so important? Well, the work you guys do is incredibly important, and for you to complete your work, no matter how much wonderful resources you get from funders, that is restricted, you can't finish the work. You can't get everything finally completed unless you can actually go and lobby. And that is essential to your work. Moreover, this is kind of a classic time of why the unrestricted dollars are so important. A lot of you want to work on these issues, and you may not have funding to do that right now. But if you have unrestricted dollars, you can turn to what matters most to kids in your state or your community using your unrestricted dollars, even as you fundraise to get foundation support for it, and even as you need to lobby. When we first started working with Mark and Alia, which I think is over 3 years ago now, I think, we chose to, oh dear, we've lost Jennifer in Baltimore because their building is closing due to violent protests. She'll be a little late. Erica, if you're on, I think we're planning to record this. Jasmine, are we recording it now?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so first of all, everyone should know it's being recorded because we have to tell you that legally, and we will make this recording available to everyone. When we started working with Mark and Alia 3 years ago, we were fortunate to have a small pot of unrestricted dollars that we could invest in the members. We put some into a reserve fund to protect the partnership stability, but we wanted to take most of these funds and invest in your capacity. And we felt very, very strongly that the most important way to do that was to build your ability to raise unrestricted funds, because we knew that they were essential to the work that you do. Essential in that it lets you turn to whatever matters most for kids, and essential because it lets you lobby when all your restricted dollars will not let you lobby. And so we went looking hard to find people that we thought really could work with you on fundraising unrestricted dollars from donors, and who understood how that is difficult for advocates. We found Mark and Alia. I know a number of you have been working with them. You can't hold your in-person events, and that's where a lot of you get your unrestricted dollars. And we also know that with the recession, to the extent that foundations holdings have decreased in value, they're willing, they are probably going to limit how much they're
I think we lost Deb. We should give her a second to call back in.
Mark, I'm wondering if maybe we should just kind of forge ahead.
Whenever that you'd be able to raise unrestricted dollars. We also knew that this was going to. Do you have me now? You should have me back.
We have you back.
Okay. So we knew when the epidemic hit, when the pandemic hit, that we needed to invest in your ability to raise unrestricted dollars more than ever, partly because you can't do in-person events, partly because foundations may reduce their giving because the value of their stock holdings have dropped. And so we sat down with Mark and Alia and restructured our contract with them to provide a different kind of support. And I'm now going to turn this over to Mark and Alia to talk about how we are working with them to try and help you continue to raise unrestricted dollars. Completed this first 3-part game plan that we've developed. We'll sit down again and figure out what you guys need next. But we know that this work is essential to who you are and what you do, and we're determined to try and support it as much as we can. I've never been more proud to be supporting your network. I say this a lot, I'm gonna say it again. You guys are my heroes, and we need to make sure that heroes have their tools, and unrestricted dollars is a critical part of your tools. So Mark and Alia, take it away.
Great. I'll go ahead, Mark, and kick things off, unless you have any housekeeping that you want to share.
Not at all.
Okay, great. So before we get started, Mark and I both want to acknowledge this very traumatizing time in the wake of George Floyd's killing. And my words can't fully express what is needed in this moment. But what I can say is that our intentions as a company are to really deepen our commitment to Black and Brown colleagues whom we share, and to social justice. It's just an imperative in the climate we live in. So I just wanted to share that before we start digging into the content. And we thank you all for all the work that you're doing on behalf of justice and health and security for all. Mark, is there anything you'd add there?
I think that was beautifully put. I just want to acknowledge that Jennifer Bevan-Dangel has found her way back among us.
Great, great. So Debbie alluded to the restructuring of our work, and that is indeed correct. Today really marks a new dawn in our work with you, in that we are going to facilitate a discussion about what your needs are, right, in terms of the pandemic, in terms of what's happening in the news right now, how we can help you adapt some of those messages, adapt your work, and feel really strong and secure in moving forward with raising unrestricted dollars. So that's what today's about. I'm going to share a brief presentation with you about the fundraising landscape as a whole, so you can see other benchmarks in the community. And then Mark is going to facilitate a discussion between breakout groups that he'll do more of, and then we'll talk about next steps. The second phase of this new engagement is that Mark and I are doing one-on-one coaching. And for everyone who has joined this call and for others who hear the recording, you should sign up for a coaching slot with us, where we'll do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis of your current unrestricted fundraising infrastructure. And we'll help you figure out if there are strengths that you want to build upon, or if there are weaknesses that you maybe want to strengthen. So we definitely welcome you to take part of that. And then phase 3 will be this idea of virtual events and the symposium for bringing together people who are doing this or have done it to figure out, how that could best serve you. All right, so I'm just going to share a little bit of this landscape review. Mark and I are fundraising consultants. We are working with a number of nonprofit organizations, both domestic and international, and we're very much plugged into the fundraising scene. So I'm going to be sharing with you our perspective on things and some research studies that have been done in the last 4 weeks to 6 weeks, really giving us some grounding into what we're charting here. Next slide, Mark. So basically, the way that Mark and I are thinking about this is that we are seeing 3 types of organizations fundraising in the COVID-19 era. The first is you. This is folks who are directly connected to COVID response efforts, to social justice efforts. They are advocating for getting food to hungry kids. You are bridging healthcare gaps. You are advocating for vulnerable communities, and you are pivoting your resources or expertise, right? So these are directly connected folks, and I would absolutely list every one of your organizations here. I know that you don't do direct service, right? Or most of you don't do direct service, but you do advocacy that is benefiting people who are really struggling through the pandemic. Next slide. Then we have indirectly connected organizations. So these are groups who are responding tangentially to the crisis, advocating for gun sense policies to protect people who are at home, or sheltering in place in violent situations. These are organizations who might be advocating for immigrants or refugees who are seeking asylum in the United States. There's still a clear why give and a why give now, but it's not necessarily in the core heartstrings of where individual donors are when they're thinking about where to invest their dollars in this new COVID-19 world. Next slide. Not connected, but still important. I'm really glad that you are not in this category, because these organizations, and we have some clients who are in this group, these folks are not involved in the crisis, but they're still absolutely impacted, right? So they have events that they're not able to do. They have different things that are not necessarily working. And they're trying to carry out their important work but have been derailed by the crisis. Often they're taking their advocacy efforts online, they're organizing virtually, but these folks are having a real hard time fundraising right now. So let's go to the next slide. So in terms of insights, okay, so we know that we've got these three types of organizations. What are we seeing? Right now, we are seeing that nonprofits are raising money. Directly and indirectly connected nonprofits are raising money right now. The number of gifts is up. The average gift is down. This is typically what we see, is that during a recession, that average gift will go down. But often number of gifts will go down as well. And that is not happening for groups in your category. So this is a light of hope right ahead. And I'm hoping that some of you are seeing this already. Next slide. Donors tell us there is reason to be cautiously optimistic. There is a research and fundraising consulting agency named OG, and they published a study on May 1st based on a survey fielded in April during the height of the initial wave of the pandemic. Their sample size was 600 nonprofit direct response donors, and they really tried to mirror what a typical progressive nonprofit direct response donor looked like. And they found some really optimistic news. Almost 70% of the respondents said that the economy will have no impact on their giving, or that they plan to give even more. People are pessimistic about the overall economy, right? And they're as pessimistic about it as they have been since 2019. The optimism-pessimism balance is 47 are optimistic, 53% are pessimistic. But the bright side of this is that people's assessment of their own finances is more positive. So 61% expressed optimism about their personal finances, compared with 47% relaying optimism about the overall economy, right? So donors are saying that the economy is not going to have any impact on their giving. And while they're more pessimistic about the overall economy, they're more optimistic about their own assessment of their own finances. And then when looking at overall economic behavior, survey respondents expressed a broad sense of caution when it came to delaying major purchases like cars or houses. But compared to other financial commitments, they expressed much more willingness to keep supporting existing causes, and to a lesser extent, engaging with new ones that are directly servicing gaps that have been surfaced because of COVID-19. Okay, so this gives you a little bit of a ray of hope. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, the previous study was from donors themselves, but there was another study published by a consulting firm, published on May 1st, based on data from April 20th through May 1st, from 1,000 plus nonprofits. And we are being more cautious than optimistic, right? And I get that, right? We have to, oops, that was not my toilet flushing. Let me see, I got out of the presentation there, sorry.
If it's good enough for the Supreme Court.
Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass anyone, but I just got a little off my game on that. So slide 3, nonprofits report being more cautious than optimistic. So more than half of nonprofits reported a decline in fundraising since the COVID-19 outbreak. However, only 24% said it was a significant decline. Religious and cultural organizations were most hard hit. Most nonprofits are bracing for a downward trend, and direct appeals and major donor strategies are the highest priority folks have at this time. While social media and virtual contact are playing a prominent role in donor engagement, the most utilized method of donor engagement has been personal phone calls, which makes total sense. And then 58% of nonprofits are adapting their current case for support to include new COVID-related programs. So what do we think about all of this? Next slide, Mark, please. Be realistic, but not a wallflower. So I think you should set realistic goals, but don't underestimate yourself, right? This is a why now moment for your organization, why folks should be giving to you now. Identify what economic conditions really are affecting your donors, right? There are some geographic changes. You can get a sense of, are these small business owners who, might not be able to make payroll, or are these larger, funders, investors who aren't necessarily in that group. Identify clear policy issues you are working on that will help kids and how these issues are most COVID adjacent. And we're going to talk about that today. Strengthen relationships with your current donors across all of your channels, and be creative, right, with changing up your events, and try things. We're finding that many donors are very open to groups trying things out and maybe not necessarily having the most smooth online, forum or, virtual event, but definitely think creatively about how you do that. And we'll be brainstorming with you later today about that as well. And I think that's it for me, Mark.
Thank you for that, Alia. One of the things that's interesting to me is that there's an apparent mismatch between the relative pessimism of the nonprofits and the relative optimism of the donors. And both Alia and I have seen instances where organizations that will overcome their reluctance to fundraise immediately find some amount of fundraising success. So I think the errors right now are more errors of omission than errors of commission. I'm putting aside what's happening this week, and that's going to continue to play out, and that's a different conversation. Before we break you out into discussions, I'm wondering if anyone has any questions for Alia or me, and if you just want to cautiously unmute yourself and tell us who you are and what your question is. We may or may not know the answer, but we'll do our best. And we'll do Q&A for about 5 minutes.
This is Stephen Warner with Voices for Alabama's Children. And my
Hi,
question
Steve.
is, in researching the funders, do we look geographically? So Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, have we looked at any variances amongst different economies?
I've not seen anything, Alia. You're on mute.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything either. It's a really great question. And it's something that, I can take a closer look at, but I haven't seen any recent research that shows any differences.
The other thing I would add to that, and it was the last point Alia made, and I just want to double down on it, is this is new for everybody. And almost everything you do in the next 6 months probably could be considered an experiment. One of the things we're going to talk about today is what's the best way for you to be sharing results of your experiments with one another. Because there's already a lot of important learning and a lot of experiments that have been run. And I think one thing that's on Alia's in my mind is how do we make sure that, some lesson learned in Oklahoma or Maryland gets disseminated to all of you. Other questions?
This is Jennifer in Maryland, and apologies for being late and noisy. I had to leave the office unexpectedly. They're shutting it down, so that messed up my plans. But my question is, sort of to that point of lessons learned, are we starting to see any results on how well virtual events are doing as far as fundraising goes? We're planning ours, and it's been a bit chaotic, so I think some of it's on us, but we're definitely not seeing the same engagement in fundraising that we've seen with a real event or in-person event.
Yeah, right now, folks who are doing virtual events are on the leading pioneering edge, Jennifer. So you are right there. I just did, it wasn't a fundraising event, but it was the first virtual conference that I participated in. And it was at the end of May, just maybe 2 weeks ago. And, I think the jury is still out. There is an organization that I'm following very closely who's doing a large gala event on June 8th here in New York City, and it's all going to be virtual. So that's something that I'm going to be looking at to see how well they do. Try it. It's going to be chaotic. I want to normalize this. Nobody's ever had to do this before. Your donors are adapting to this. You are adapting to this. Your virtual committees are adapting to this. So, the more normal and the more you can frame it as an experiment, the better.
Yeah, I would add to that. We've seen a number of virtual events, not run by you all, but run by large and small organizations. And I would say none of the ones I've heard about would be considered an abject failure. I'd say most of them have raised less money gross than they might have in their live event. And some of them have raised substantially less than they might raise in a live event. But a couple of organizations I can think of actually came out better on net because their expenses were so much lower. So one of the things that we're particularly keen on is in rapid knowledge transfer around exactly this issue. And we will be hosting another gathering, I believe it's June 11th, Jasmine, is that correct? To discuss this issue in particular. And Jennifer, I think that's after your event, which I look forward to attending. One last question before I break everyone up. All right, let's move ahead. Here's what we propose. There are 37 of you, which makes for an unwieldy focus group. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you 2 series of questions. And after each series of questions, we're going to give you a minute just to think about what your own answer is. Oh, June 10th at 3. Thank you, Jasmine. 3 p.m. Eastern. We will put 3 questions for each of these in chat and give you a minute or 2 just to think about what your own answers are before you get into groups. We will then divide you into groups of 4. Some of you may find yourself in a group of 3. You'll have 15 minutes to answer the first set of questions and 10 minutes to answer the second set of questions. And we'll spend some time in between debriefing what everyone found, what themes came out, what patterns came out, and Alia looks like she wants to add something.
Yeah, so Mark, will there be a debrief between the 2 sets of questions?
There will indeed, and I am so glad you asked that. We'll spend about 15 minutes debriefing the first set, and we'll spend about 10 minutes debriefing the second set, and then we will figure out next steps. But meanwhile, do pencil in June 10th at 3 p.m. So we can all get together and talk about virtual events. So I'm going to chat in the first set of questions and read them out loud for those of you who are on the phone. And the first question is, what obstacles do you see in your work, in your particular situation, to individual fundraising success? What, if anything, could be getting in the way right now? Yes, June 10th Eastern Time. That could be a staff shortage, that could be a reluctance on your part, that could be a board that feels like it would be inappropriate. It could be the distractions of programmatic work that you weren't planning that you've had to take on. What's getting in the way of your individual fundraising success? And related to that, the second question to consider is, what do you need right now, support-wise, to succeed at individual fundraising? What is it in particular that Alia and I can provide to you that would help you succeed? That may be the same as what it was when we began this program. A lot of you were concerned about boards and mid-level fundraising and events to some degree and sustainers. Maybe that's changed though. So we wanted to just zero base that question and re-ask, what do you need right now to succeed? And then the last question is related to what I just said. How have those needs changed in your view since the pandemic hit? One thing I want to say parenthetically, and that is, for those of you who are in pods, we are not discontinuing those pods. The pods will continue to meet. And so anything we do is over and on top of what was already in place. Alia, anything to add before I give people a quiet minute? And I'll give you fair warning before I divide you into breakouts. And if any of you have not already experienced the joy of Zoom breakouts, the system will give you about a 1-minute warning and a countdown to let you know that your time's almost up. And bonus points for any breakouts where you can agree on who's going to be the spokesperson for your group. We're not going to go group by group by group, but just to facilitate the sharing process, that would be great.
I will add, yeah, that would be really helpful because this is information that we need in order to better serve you. So if you do designate someone, it would be great to get the shared learning out of the small breakouts into the larger conversation. So I think that's a great point, Mark.
Cool. All right, so again, the questions are, what obstacles do you see right now to your individual fundraising success? What do you need right now in terms of support from Alia and me, and I would add, or from one another to succeed? And how have your needs changed since the pandemic and the recession hit? And just take another 30 seconds to think about how you would answer those questions. And I don't think the chat's going to carry over into your breakout groups, so you might want to scribble down the questions as well. And if they do, so much the better. I'm just looking at faces to see if people are ready. People look ready to me, so I am gonna break you up. You're gonna be broken up randomly. And we will see you in 15 minutes. And let's see, 29 participants would be 7 rooms. Here you go. Enjoy. Tara?
Yes. How are you doing?
Good. I'm going to assign you to a breakout.
Okay. Sorry, I
And,
lost the internet connection there.
No worries. Here, I'm going to send you to breakout room 4. There you go.
Oh my God, I came back too soon.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm fine. I was just trying to click a box to get it out of the way, and instead I left my group right after I asked them a question. Oh
I'm
well.
always afraid I'll cause everything to explode by hitting the wrong button.
Oh, I haven't ever done a breakout room in Zoom yet. I wondered how they worked. Now I know.
Now you know exactly. Welcome back, everyone.
Super, super simple to use.
If you all wouldn't mind muting yourself as you come back, that would be much appreciated. Alia, Jasmine, and Deb. Yeah, I didn't realize until the last minute you were going to get assigned to a group. I hope that was okay. Good. It was an accident, but maybe a good accident. All right, I'm going to get rid of that. Is everybody back? Looks like everybody.
Yes.
Looks like we may have lost a couple people in the process, but I'm gonna kick us off. Oh, here. You can see my desperately in need of a haircut hair. Why don't we just go ahead and open things up? If you are the designated spokesperson for your group, just unmute yourself and tell us what were the key takeaways from those 3 questions.
Hi. So for my group, the 3 of us had not been very involved in individual donors before. So the first question was sort of like where to start. Then the next issues were how do you engage your board in this? How do we tap into wealth that may exist in our respective areas? And then a question about how to identify progressive political donors. That might be a good bunch of prospects.
Cool, cool. And does that cover all 3 questions, or?
That was what we got to.
That's where you got to. That's great. And I would just make a big plug for signing up for coaching sessions, particularly if you haven't been involved. Well, all of you, but because you haven't been involved, that SWOT we can do will really help you set some priorities.
Okay.
How about some others?
I'm happy to jump in. I don't know why it only looks like there's 18 people on this Zoom when I look around, but I guess there's a lot more.
There's 30.
Oh, okay. Well, hi everyone. Rebekah, Westchester Children's Association. And first of all, I had never done a Zoom breakout, so that was very exciting. And I got to meet 3 new people. So hi, gang. Yes, very, very fun. So some of the things that we talked about, some of the obstacles and concerns that we have. One is just our own workspaces at home and trying to, stay professional while having little people or even big people running by and needing our attention all the time. And then also having small development departments or non-existent development departments where we work and being the lone rangers in fundraising, and that really becoming a burden at this time when you can't lean on anyone else. I think Meryl, I think that's your name, had mentioned about, getting the board involved. And so I think that's also a concern of this group, was that, board engagement is certainly when it comes to fundraising, they were lacking that enthusiasm before the pandemic. And it's not that they've all wanted to start reaching out and calling people for money now. So that is some issues. In terms of what we need to succeed, so I'm happy to post in the chat if you'd like. We had created a video on the date that our event was supposed to take place. We created a video to make our issues very timely and say, we wish we were celebrating with you tonight, but instead, here's how we're dealing with the issues that we work on right now. So I don't know how to put that in the chat, but I can figure out how to link it to the chat so everyone can see what the video was that we created. And one of the things that came up was maybe some verbiage on how to make our advocacy work extremely relevant right now. That's what we've been trying to do at WCA, is because advocacy takes so long that for so many people, they want their return on investment immediately, and advocacy can't do that. But right now, I feel like we actually have an opportunity to say, well, these are the things we've been fighting for all along, you know, racial equity and homelessness and whatever. So make it very relevant to what is currently on people's minds. That's it.
Rebekah, rather than have you worry about your link, why don't you just send it to us later and we'll start creating a place where everyone can go. Joe sent something through earlier. So we'll
send it to you, Mark, to Alia, to who do I, to Jasmine?
Send it to Jasmine,
okay,
or us, either or both. And,
okay, I'll do that.
And we'll pull everything together for folks.
Okay.
Couple more groups.
I can go for our group.
Thanks, Ryan.
A lot of the challenges that we talked about, I guess we're in two buckets. One was it just sort of working from home and having lowered productivity for various reasons. You know, maybe you have, you're watching your kids, or, you know, maybe there are, you know, you're not set up the same way as in your office, or, you know, you just need more sort of mental health space too, given everything that's going on. And the other area of challenges were around events, particularly the nonprofits, big annual fundraising events. And actually both Alana and Joe mentioned that, you know, they were planning to do some sort of virtual fundraising event. Joe's banquet on July 31st, that's pretty neat venture, with a virtual award ceremony, and also doing a food delivery for their participants instead of, you know, since you can't all be around the same table, and doing an auction over Zoom. At HCAN, we were actually going to do a fundraising dinner on March 12th, which was, well, we debated for like, you know, an entire week going into it, whether we should cancel it or not, which we ultimately did. So that was another, you know, big area of challenges. So I think in terms of the needs right now that we identified, we're basically around those two, you know, best practices for working from home. I think, you know, well, Joe said more time in the day, but absent that, what else we can do? And, you know, just other sort of, you know, fundraising best practices in a very different time.
Alia, did you want to add something? No.
Nope, I just wanted to say thanks for everyone who's sharing. It's really helpful, and I'm taking notes here.
Great, great. How about a couple more?
This
is super helpful.
This is Jennifer, and my group talked about a pretty diverse array of struggles. We're all in very different places, so it was interesting. For some of us, certainly myself, you know, we've seen sort of a drop-off of engagement by the board. We've having our own problems, sort of focusing and prioritizing the work, and then just feeling like my organization doesn't have any development staff, which I probably mention all the time. And then it was interesting, though, we talked a bit about how, although we know logically that like now is the time to be lifting up our work, some of us still struggle with doing that because we aren't direct service. But then one of the EDs on the call, and she's willing to share her materials, she pushed out a letter to her lapsed donors saying policy work is more important than ever, and, you know, please consider giving. And she had really strong results. Like, she got a lot of donors back who had lapsed. So Mark and Alia are right when they say stuff, even if we're like then not, following through and doing it. So that was very interesting, although not surprising. And then
He didn't pay her, I promise.
That's right. She was a plant. I think the other piece was, I'm trying to remember, there was something else that worked. Oh, just talking about how like taking that time to reach out to individual donors, like in our major donors, and feeding those relationships. That sort of outreach has been really well received if you have a relationship. But then the problem is if you didn't have a relationship going in, like one of the groups was a new staff person, or like some of us, because we've never had a program in place to build those relationships, it's, now's not the time to build it. So there's definitely a difference between if you had a pre-existing relationship versus if you didn't, but it's successful to reach out if you had that relationship.
Yeah, Jennifer, just doubling down on that. In my small group, most of the folks, well, all of them, hadn't really invested much time in unrestricted fundraising for a variety of reasons. And there are a set of different challenges, right, for folks who are starting out versus folks who have some basic infrastructure around it. I still think that there's a case to be made for why now for those folks. And the challenge is, okay, where do you prioritize, and how do you triage some of the other things that might be going on while building an unrestricted fundraising program?
That's great. That's great. How about a couple more? This is so useful.
This is Julia from Our Children Organ. I was hoping Juanita would speak for our group, but I am happy to do that unless you want to, Juanita, because I think what we talked about echoes a lot of the same things: virtual fundraising, capacity, prioritization. But Juanita has a particularly interesting and unique challenge with her individual fundraising because of her community base that is the impacted community that they serve is their individual donor base. And so there's unique hardship that, I particularly struck me as a unique need that I didn't really think about that from that lens before. So that was one of the big standouts. But I think overall it kind of echoed a lot of the other things that have been said so far.
It's such a good point. And those communities have been impacted layer after layer after layer. It's hard to know.
I think one of the other things that I'd like to ask, with a lot of our grassroots donors, even as we talk about, Zoom and virtual, fundraising resources, a lot of the people that we work with and our donors, they don't have, the kind of technology. Then it's not accessible to them. The biggest thing with so many of the donors and the people that work with us, they may have a cell phone and they can go on the internet and they can check their Facebook or, a text or something like that, but they really don't have the expertise or the resources to, where we can communicate with a lot of the new ways of, fundraising and using technology.
I think that's a great point, and it's something Alia and I will be thinking about for sort of what are the low-tech alternatives to things like Zoom fundraisers.
One quick question that came out of ours that's a specific question for y'all. What are some of the tools or techniques or tricks to developing relationships when you can't sit down with somebody face to face? So much of individual giving is that relationship. How do you develop that when you don't have the opportunity to sit down with someone?
Yeah, from my perspective, and we can do more like in one-on-one coaching, so we can do really specific based on what's going on for you. I think it's just like Jennifer said, for folks who you already have relationships with, it's much easier, right? And folks have become more, climatized to having coffees or teas or something like that via Zoom or via a phone call, right? For folks who you don't have a relationship with, now's the time probably to not necessarily ask, but to really reach out in a meaningful and authentic way. That could be through, a Q&A with the executive director and the policy director, and inviting folks to join you to, ask questions about how you're responding or pivoting in light of COVID-19, or why this moment is, so important, that you've been advocating for policy initiatives all along, and here you are now. I think that organizations who are connecting, who are using this moment to not only ask, right, but also to deepen connection, via, postcards like, I hope you're well, to your major donors, we're thinking of you and yours, just different things like that to ensure that people know that you're thinking about them, right? And I'd be more than happy, Stephen, to, really kind of think through what is a cultivation touch calendar look like for the different audiences that you're looking at. This would be a great use of a coaching session, just as an example.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I'm going to open it up to anyone who has anything to share, anything that hasn't come up, especially that was surfaced as a particular need. Just unmute yourself and let us know.
We did have a conversation in ours also about the need for better technology support. And Julia mentioned moving to give something, except then my computer gave me the wrong name. Julia, what was the technology you moved to?
It's called Give Lively, and it's a free kind of campaign-based virtual donation software that really just hooks up to Stripe and very simple to use.
That's great. Yeah, that didn't come up in our small group, but technology and processing for donations and those kinds of things are absolutely imperative, right? And to fundraising, particularly virtually now.
I'll add, this is Fran Carter in Arkansas, and we've been trying to spend time just making quick phone calls to donors, and it's kind of interesting. Sometimes I'll go through several different calls and just leave messages, and then I'll get 2 or 3 in a row that'll pick up the phone because they're home just like me and happy to have somebody to talk to. And so it's been real interesting. I've been at my job for less than a year, and so there are a lot of people I don't know yet. And so it has been a chance for me to connect with some of those folks and find out about their history with our organization. And I've had everything from, we can't do as much as we did last year, but we still want to do something, to, I don't really need my stimulus check, so I'm sharing that with all the charities that are important to me.
Yeah, Fran, thank you for that. Again, even if, I think maybe in my initial presentation where I was talking about fundraising as asking, fundraising is so much more than that, right? The ask is like 5 to 10%. And Stephen, you helped me realize that maybe I had emphasized the ask part of fundraising. The engagement part is it, and that's the fun part, right? Is where you can show and connect and really talk about the impact your organization is having. So Fran, I love that. And what intel to get, from the folks that you talk to. And I can guarantee you very few other organizations are doing that kind of outreach. So it really sets you apart in terms of your donors and how they think about you.
And I can tell you guys, I actually had one donor who I did miss and left her a message, and she called me back and said, thank you for actually calling me, because it is unusual. So it's an easy thing to do while we're all home.
Yeah,
It's one of the few upsides of everybody being home. Anyone else? Alia or Deb, anything else that you saw that is worth calling out? Nope. All right, I am going to move us along then and introduce the second breakout. And this comes from something that Alia and I have been noting all along, particularly as we've been working more intensively with the groups that are in fundraising pods, and that is you all are so much better at this, I think, than you give yourself credit for. And I think many of you have particular strengths and particular skills that really stand out that others of you are wanting or needing. Some of you have gotten your boards under control. Some of you are just really great at promotion and marketing. Joe, I'm thinking of you. Hawaii, I'm thinking of you. Some of you have done a great job of building a stewardship program and reaching out to your mid-level and major donors. Some of you have done a great job of launching monthly donor programs. And so what we would like to do in this second discussion is have you share with a small group what you see as your particular strengths. It might just be, I'm a great planner. It might just be, I'm a great brainstormer. Or it may be one of the things that I mentioned. What are the strengths that you have to share? And anything that you've either based on your strength or anything you've just heard or learned about. Julia, you chatted something to me about something you had learned about. Any wins that are worth sharing with the group? And then finally, the third question is, what can we do to more effectively share our wins and our learnings with one another? So as before, I'm going to chat those in and not break you up immediately. What are your strengths? What can you offer is the first question. Any recent wins, either your wins or others, worth sharing? And how can we best share learnings and outcomes with one another?
Mark,
Alia?
I don't want to add chaos to the madness of breaking us out, but in my group, there were a lot of newbies who hadn't necessarily done much individual fundraising. So I was wondering if there's a way that we could organize so that way there's folks, like there's a little bit more of a mix.
I'm going to remix the groups.
Great.
And Alia and Deb and Jasmine, I'm going to send you into groups. And if any of you end up in a group that feels unbalanced, just exit the group, let me know, and I'll try to rebalance it. And apologies in advance if I create more chaos than order, but I think it's worth trying. I think it's totally worth trying. Thank you. So what can you offer? What wins are you aware of that are worth sharing? And how can we best share learnings and outcomes with one another? This is going to be a shorter one. It's not that you don't have 15 minutes worth of strengths, but we're only going to give you 10 minutes this time. And let me see if I can make sure that we start over. Recreate. There it is. 7 rooms. Okay. Enjoy. 10 minutes.
advocacy support is teaching people how to be advocates for themselves and reach out. And what happens is when they learn how to do that advocacy for themselves, they're also able to teach other people that they know. And that is how they become involved in public policy and connect the two.
Welcome back to all of you and your dogs. Mine is finally sleeping, I'm happy to say. Before we report out, I would love it if everyone would just chat into the chat box what your strength is, what your individual strength is, what your organization's strength is, just so we get a quick record. And that would be for everybody.
I don't see the
Alia, I would certainly agree with that. These are great. These are really inspiring. Persistence is an important quality.
This is so great. You
And
know,
that,
one of the things that came up while these keep coming in is that the person in my last group was like, I'm a really strong planner and project manager, but relationship building is where, you know, I struggle. And it looks like we've got like a lot of folks who kind of like build out the bench of what it takes to be a really strong fundraiser, right? Because you need that planning and organization, but you need persistence, you need leadership. And I think this is where you're going, Mark, but really showcasing how folks can lean on one another as well as leaning on us to help build out some of the places where you want to like lean in a little bit more and or to help like emphasize where you already shine. This is great.
I think that we should just all stop what we're doing and start a firm, because everything we need is here in the room. Although what you're doing is way too important for that. Please do keep adding your strengths. We have about 7 more minutes, so I want to use the time well. And just ask people to report out the second and third thing. What wins have you seen? Julia, I'm going to call you out because you had sent something to me. And what might we do in addition to what is already done to rapidly disseminate wins and learnings? And if there's a designated spokesperson, have at it. And even if there's not, have at it. Just take yourself off mute and tell us what wins you've seen and what ideas you have for getting the word out quickly amongst you.
This is Anne from Child and Family Policy Center. I'll give a shout out to the 2 members of my second team who both noted that they had some real success with the Global Giving Tuesday. And one person actually that was a day that was already kind of a regional giving day, that was a successful event. And then that they're both building monthly giving campaigns, and small but growing. And I thought those were both really exciting to hear about.
That's awesome.
Sarah,
I'm happy to. Oh.
Sarah Seibert, you should share yours.
Okay, but bear with me because someone is mowing their lawn really loudly, and I'm outside escaping my own littles who will not let me get work done otherwise. So sorry about that, but we very publicly paused our capital campaign because of the pandemic. And as a result of that, we were able to get additional donations and including in-kind service and materials. And so we're 100% funded now. So yeah, that's been a big win.
Sarah, that's awesome.
That's kind of huge. Julia, can I call you out to share the story you told me on chat?
Oh, sure. It's not my
Anna's here.
particular story.
You
I
just
was
stopped
just
this because I had an Anna.
sharing with Mark briefly, sorry, it's a little bit loud in my background, that I saw a really incredible fundraiser that was virtual, that was just done so unbelievably well that they actually doubled their goal. And I happen to know it's more than they raised in their individual giving, in their programming at the event. And it cost them next to nothing. And they just did a really incredible job of pre-setting some really, really, really beautiful engagement pieces. And pre-setting their board in particular to engage with people in the chat and keep them enthusiastic, as well as a lot of other really, really, really great things, like actually in real time thanking their donors as people were donating in the chat. And so just the attention to detail that this virtual event had really, and they gave them alcohol too. They had to make a cocktail ahead of time. And so that people were just really feeling like, even though they weren't there, that they were engaged and included. So it was just a very successful version of a virtual event that I was very impressed by.
Very cool.
Any other wins to share?
So it's much broader than that. And for my group, one of the things that I heard, and I think this came from Julie, I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name, but she had some great things that how quickly they were able to sort of adapt and shift to, and we are very similar, and I think probably all of us had to do that very quickly, but just being successful in pivoting what our issues were and how we addressed the issues that we were dealing with and presenting them to the greater public in an effective way that was very relevant. And especially with her having a board that is very engaged. You know, I think my board is very engaged, but not when it comes to the fundraising. And so for anyone who has an engaged board, that is definitely a win for the long term. And Meryl also mentioned just the communications and how they're able to address, you know, large groups of people, 200 to 300 people, several times a week to get them information that they need, including meetings with legislators and, you know, other politicians to get policies passed and issues presented. And so there's a couple wins for my little group.
That's awesome. I'm curious, we have 2 minutes left, and I just want to use 30 seconds of the 2 minutes to see if there are any ideas for how to rapidly disseminate wins. And if you don't have it off the top of your head, shoot an email to us or to Jasmine, because we're really eager to connect you with one another in a way that is sustainable. Alia, you're on mute.
I'm going to be more directive. Please shoot an email to Jasmine about how we can connect you. We don't have enough time to go over it, but like this has been so fruitful. And I think a lot of fundraising energy comes from being reconnected to the possibility and the potential, because it's so hard, right? Like doing unrestricted fundraising is not an easy thing. It pushes us, you know, on all of our different levels. And I think connecting with this group of people is helpful. And we want to see how we can plug into your very busy schedules and make it useful. So please send us an email.
Thank you for that, Alia. That's much better than what I was saying. In the last minute, I'm going to make a huge plug for each of you to sign up for coaching. We have done these rapid SWATs with a number of you. They've been a very efficient way of identifying priorities, identifying hotspots that need addressing, and giving you a sense of strategic direction. And I will invite Jasmine to send out the link immediately after this. And let Debbie or Jasmine have the last 30 seconds. Thank you all for doing this. This has exceeded our expectations in terms of helping to give us guidance on how to help you. Debbie?
So I'm going to say a couple of things. I'm going to take us a little overboard, and then I'll let Jasmine wrap up. One is that something that's not about donor fundraising, but I strongly encourage you all to do, is to reach out to your current funders to see if they'll convert your grants to general support so it's unrestricted. A lot of funders are doing this. It never hurts to ask. Fund donors who've given away most of their money or don't have new money to give you may at least be able to make it more flexible. By all means, ask them for more money too. I'm not saying don't, but at least try and ask for the unrestricted version that gives you so much more power. The second is the partnership's here to connect you. So please do connect, let Jasmine know what we can do. Remember, it's easy for us to do things like calls, Zoom calls, listservs, whatever will work. Jennifer's colleague has joined her. And I'm actually going to make a really specific request. Everybody who starts calling their donors, why don't you send Jasmine the results of your first donor call? Just so that we can all see what it is. And so it kind of gives you a mission to start that. And I suspect after you've done the first one, it'll be a lot easier. And we can just send around a little chart afterwards of how everybody's first donor call went. And that will encourage other people to try it. So that's my ask of everybody. I'm so glad you guys all joined us with this. And Jasmine, I will let you close us out.
Thanks, Tim. Really quickly, I'll be sending feedback from this meeting regarding the notes and the recording and some attachments that I've received so far and just next steps that you guys can look forward to. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Take care,
It was great
everyone.
to see everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, and do sign up.
Thank you.
Sign up for your session with Mark and Alia.
Sign up.
Yep. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.